Hey guys, in this episode, we're going to be taking all the knowledge we've covered in the Go Long Range series and get some long range impacts at 1,000 plus yards. To be sure, stay tuned. Now, in the last couple of episodes, we've talked about rifle scopes, how to read a reticle, we've talked about ballistic calculators, where to find the information, how to navigate a ballistic calculator and how to use it and what all the different information means inside of it. And today, we're going to be kind of tying it all together and showing basically how we go if we were to go out and grab a gun and grab a good quality scope and grab some good quality ammo, and taking that rifle to the range for the first time and how to make those long range impacts and where do you even start at? How do you even true your information and your data inside your ballistic software? That's today's plan. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. If you haven't checked out the last couple episodes, be sure to go back to those, watch those, and you're gonna be kind of caught up to speed at where we're at right now. A couple other things to keep in mind in this episode, we're not going to be covering things like how to read wind, how to drive a gun, other external ballistic factors like spin drift and whatnot. We're not going to be covering those things. I just want to show basically how we could even get those first impacts and where we would even start. So with all that stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and let's get started. Now, I've already verified 0 on my rifle. I took it out to the 100-yard range when I shot it, and it was getting good half-inch groups out of the Hornady factory ammo that we're going to be shooting today. This is just basic Hornady match 147 ELDM and a 6.5 Creedmoor, so nothing fancy, but it's stuff that you'd find at your local store, and that's kind of the plan or the idea. I didn't want to use some sort of crazy hot rod cartridge and start hand loading when the average person getting into this probably isn't going to be there, and that's kind of what this is geared for. New people just trying to get into it. So the rifle is zeroed. I plugged in the information off this factory Hornady box of ammunition. It says I should have a muzzle velocity of 26.95 as far as feet per second goes, and a G7BC of 0.351. We're gonna be putting that to the test today and seeing in our gun what it truly takes to make long range impacts. Now, the rifle I'm gonna be shooting today is a custom 6.5 Creedmoor. It's on a American Rifle Company Nucleus Action with just a custom 6.5 Creedmoor off-the-shelf pre-fit barrel, nothing fancy with that. The chassis is an Aero Precision Solus and a Trigger Tech trigger. So nothing too crazy today. I am going to be shooting suppressed. The optic on top of the gun is a Vortex Strike Eagle 5-25. It's in MOA, so kind of keep that in mind. But the information in today's episode doesn't matter whether you're using MOA or mils. This is just the scope that was on the gun, and I didn't really want to switch it out for something else. This was already pretty much zeroed and everything, so I just decided to run with it. Now, when truing your information, the two things we're trying to true up are muzzle velocity and ballistic coefficient, or BC, on the box. Those are the two things that's going to be different out of your rifle, because yet again, your barrel is not the test barrel that they used at the factory. So we're going to have to manipulate this muzzle velocity and this BC to fit our gun, and that's kind of the plan for today. And how do we do that? Now, when truing muzzle velocity, that's the first thing that I would check and adjust. And typically to do that, you're gonna shoot anywhere from 400 to, let's say, 600 yards or so. And you're gonna see how far the ballistic calculator is from your true elevation line of where you're truly hitting at. May tell you yet again that it takes 3 mils to get to, let's say, 500 yards. It doesn't mean it actually will. It may take 3.3, it may take 2.7, because yet again, your gun is different. So at that first step, go to that first range, 400 to 600-ish yards or so, see where you're hitting, correct from there, figure out exactly what it takes to dial to get to that elevation, and then notate that in your ballistic calculator. How you would fix this issue is through muzzle velocity. So the first thing we're going to be adjusting is muzzle velocity, and then we're going to go to the 1,000-yard range and true our BC numbers. That's kind of the two-step process. You true muzzle velocity first, and then retrue BC. So let's go ahead and let's get started with the first target. Okay, so I'm set up at our first target. I'm going to be shooting a KYL rack at about 478. So my Hornady app tells me I need to dial 8.5 MOA as elevation. So we're gonna see what happens here. I should have a spotter cam, put someone on the screen so you guys can kind of see too. So I'm going to start with the there we go. That's much better. I'm gonna be starting on the biggest target, so that is the one on the far left. And I'm just gonna aim straight up. There's basically no wind, so let's see what happens. Okay. Now, I got an impact on that first one, but you have to keep in mind the steel that I'm shooting at is rather large. Now, for this distance, it's probably almost like a 3 MOA plate. So it's pretty big. Now I'm basically gonna work my way down and see at what point does the data fail. Because that's what I should find. Eventually, I'm gonna be shooting a small enough target that I'm gonna miss. I need to figure out where am I missing, high or low. So let's keep working down this plate rack and let's see what happens. Now I watched that one. That was in the bottom right corner, basically, it looked like. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next one. Same thing, so if that's correct, then I should be low on this one. So I expect to miss low on this target. Still holding 8.5. No wind. Just barely hit it on the bottom. So I'm still hitting these targets, but I'm just barely grazing the bottom of them. So let's move on to that last one there. Or the second to last one, I should say. This one, I should miss. Okay, there we go, our first miss. And I know I'm probably low because I've been watching my impacts go low pretty much this entire time. So I'm going to use my reticle now and measure how far low I am and dial that on my turret. So measuring with my reticle, I'm probably about 1 MOA low. So I'm gonna go up, instead of 8.5, I'm gonna go to 9.5. And I still got some ammo in. Let's see if I can hit this target now. Feeling the wind. It is a little bit of wind left to right, so I'm gonna hold just a little bit of wind this time, because I've been favoring on the right side anyway. Okay, got a hit. Let's try again. Got another hit. I still have more ammo. Let's go for that itty bitty one on the far right. Oof. Hard to tell exactly where I was on that one. Nice. I had a feeling I was a little right, so I added just a scotch bit more wind to it and hit it on that one. So cool. I'm pretty confident to say that that is what we need to hold. So 9.5 MOA at 478 yards. So let's go into our app now and let's fix that muzzle velocity. Okay, so on the first target, it took 9.5 MOA to get that impact. Now let's go into our app. Let's make that correction. It still tells me 8.5. So I'm gonna go to edit rifle info and I'm gonna slow this muzzle velocity down. That really kind of makes sense because this is a 20-inch barrel in this gun, and the test rifles that they test at the factory are typically gonna be a 24-inch barrel. So that makes sense. I should be slower. That's kind of what I expected. Okay, so now I've got the Hornady app open, and now we're gonna dive in and fix our muzzle velocity. So I'm gonna hit edit rifle info on the top right-hand screen, and I'm gonna go for big changes. Let's go to 2650. Okay, still not enough. Let's try 2600. Okay, 9.4, we're getting close. Let's try 2580. Okay, so 9.58. That's gonna get us in the ballpark so we can head down to the 1,000-yard range. Muzzle velocity is the biggest factor the first 4 to, let's say, 600 yards or so. Muzzle velocity is the more important thing and the bigger factor that's gonna play on your bullet hitting a certain point. Now, as we extend our distance past that, 8, 9, 1,000 yards like we're about to do, BC is the biggest variable. Now we've trued our muzzle velocity, or at least close to where it needs to be. We're still gonna have to do some fine tuning in a second, you'll see. But now we have good enough information. We can go to the 1,000-yard range. Let's true BC. And once we get both of those things trued up, we should be able to go anywhere on this range from 300 yards to 1,200 yards and hopefully make some really good impacts. Let's go down to the 1,000-yard range and let's check it out. Okay, so the Hornady app, got it dialed out to 1,000 yards. It is telling me right at 31 MOA for this rifle. Open up our fresh box of ammo here and let's see what happens. Not gonna hold any wind on this first one. Just gonna see what happens. Okay. We have a first round impact on the big steel. Let's go to the small steel. Let's see what happens. So go to the one on the right. One on the left was a pretty big target. Let's go to the small guy. Way low. Shoot one more time, but pretty confident, which I figured was going to be low. Square up. Oh, it's not as low, but still low. So let's dial one more. Let's go 1.25 MOA more. So I'm just barely hitting, kind of skimmed the second one on the bottom. First one was decently low. I'm gonna dial 1.25 more MOA, so I'm now at 32.25. I was at 31. Impact. Let's try it again. just off right. Then just a scotch of wind. Oh, it's gonna kill me if I don't hit that again. There we go. Okay, so at 32.25, I'm hitting that 1 MOA steel at 1,000 yards. So let's go back into our Hornady app now, and let's now adjust it again. So now we got impacts at 1,000 yards. Go ahead and go back into the Hornady app. Let's true our BC. So I'm going to open the Hornady app and go back to our test gun. So in the app, we can see that it still says basically 31 MOA, and we had to dial 32.25. So to do this, I'm gonna go back, click on test gun, edit, click on bullet, enter BC, and in this case, we need to decrease BC. So I'm gonna go straight to, let's say 3.3, save, go back into it, 31.9, so we're really close. Get out of here, bug. Let's go to 0.32. That was too much. Okay, so now at a G7 BC value of 0.325, our 1,000 yard dope lines up. Let's go back and let's check our 478. The 478 was supposed to be 9.5 MOA. We can see that's telling us 9.7. Let's decrease muzzle velocity a little bit. We're gonna kind of do some fine tuning now. Let's do 25, 2560. Oh, wrong way. So let's do 2600. Okay, so I'm back at 9.5 MOA at 478. At 1,000 yards, we still can see we need to do some BC truing. Let's fine tune BC. So, playing back and forth between the 478 and 1,000 yards, I was able to get both the 478 data and the 1,000 yard data to line up. So at 478, we're told to dial 9.52, and at 1,000 yards, 32.15. That's really close to where we're at. It's well within 1/4 MOA at both those distance. Now we've trued up both of those things. Now, what was our results? Where did we end up with? We can go into edit rifle info. We ended up with a muzzle velocity of 2620 to make our data line up, compared to our box muzzle velocity of 2695. On the BC side, however, which is the side that is typically the most off, especially with Hornady bullets, nothing against them. There's some of their bullets don't line up at all with what they claim. I ended up with a BC value, a G7 BC value of 0.305. And that sounds about right. I've shot this 147 ELDM before, as far as the bullets go. And out of the other rifles that I've shot, that I have, that's around the same BC value. Usually end up around 0.3 G7 for the 147 ELDMs. We can see that's significantly off from the box posted G7 value of 0.351. But like I said, some companies are better than other when it comes to that. I will say it seems to be, not trying to throw shade at Hornady, but it does seem like Hornady is one of the worst ones at putting an accurate or close to that true G7 BC value that they publish. Well guys, that's pretty much it with getting our data. I went ahead and took our dope, and for a little bit longer I shot and confirmed it at a few more different ranges, and everything still lines up perfectly. So that tells me that we did a pretty good job. We could spend more time with this and get it even better, and that's normal. Always validate your data, constantly be validating, constantly be testing it, constantly be making sure that it's actually true still. So don't think that one range trip is going to get you perfectly there and then go straight on a elk hunt or something crazy. Validate it several times, make sure it's consistent, make sure it's always true, and then you're good. Because there's a lot of other factors that play into it that I don't want to get into much into this episode, but there's even things that can make it where, you know, why it's not consistent. Today, you know, today everything lines up, and then tomorrow we have totally different environment and why everything's off again. That's kind of a different conversation, getting into the ammo that you're shooting, the type of ammo that you're shooting, the type of powder and primers that you're using, a lot of other things play into that. Well guys, that's pretty much it as far as getting our data goes. That's the process I go through on all my rifles, is that same exact process, no matter what cartridge it is, no matter, you know, what it is, that's kind of the process I may use. Now, if you're shooting a big Magnum, you may need to start out at farther distances instead of starting out like at, let's say the 478 we started out today. You may want to start out at 600 or 700 yards to try and true your muzzle velocity, and then maybe go to 1200 or 1400 yards to true your BC, because you're trying to get in a certain threshold that the bullet's traveling a certain speed. But on most of your short action cartridges, so 308, 65 Creedmoor, so on and so forth, 65 PRC even, you're going to be kind of doing the same process we started today. Start at 500 yards, true your muzzle velocity, go to 1,000 yards, true your BC, and then play back and forth until those two lines match up absolutely perfect, and then you're pretty much done. Guys, that's it for this episode. If you have any questions or anything, drop it down in the comment section below. Let's have a discussion. Let's learn together. That's kind of the thing. I hope we learned something today. My goal of this was to be educational and to help someone else, because when I started out, I didn't have a lot of help. There's a couple guys around me that were willing to help me, but not a lot of people talk about this. There's not a lot of people who openly show how they get their data on their guns. This is exactly how I do it for all my match guns and everything. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the same exact process. There's definitely a lot of things to go deeper into. Like I said in the beginning of the video, we could have conversations about wind, about other external ballistics, pushing our projectile even farther and seeing what happens, playing with different custom drag models and personal drag models from Applied Ballistics. Lots of different avenues to go on with this, but I wanted to keep this somewhat basic and simple. I didn't want to go too deep into something and get overly technical. I wanted this to be very basic so that, like I said in the beginning, the average person can go out, buy a rifle, buy a scope, buy some high quality ammo, and come out and do the same exact thing I just did. Thanks again, guys. Be sure to like, share, subscribe to the video. It really helps our little channel out quite a bit. Be sure to keep up with the channel because we've got some really exciting things coming down the pipeline here pretty soon. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next episode.